And we're on. And welcome to the show. Today we've got Roy Coughlan here from Cork in Ireland. And he's basically going to tell us about his new book, The Awakening, which isn't actually out at the moment, but he's hoping to release it in the next couple of weeks. He's also started a podcast called The Awakening. And the book, he actually just told me before we started the show, he gave out to a couple of his friends and a few book critics. And they said that a possible death warrant on his head if he releases this book about all the many industries of corruption he's going to go through today and give us a bit of an insight on it. So, Roy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So we'll get to the book in a second, but and your new podcast. But first of all, just give us a small background on yourself and up to the present day.
All right. I'm from Cork, and I studied in Cork. I done construction economics, and I was involved in construction up to 2006. Then I moved to Łódź in Poland, working in construction. And when the crisis came, I was involved with a syndicate with a lot of different people. And basically, the bank stopped lending money, so everybody lost their properties. And through the pain of everything that I went through is what has kind of fueled me to write this book. And how it all started is I went to an event 4 years ago, and it was called Living Your Quest. So it was a case of, what is your quest? And at the time I was thinking, what am I doing in life? And I thought, okay, I know a lot of things that are going on because of this. Not just because of the different things I've done, but I read a lot of books as well. We've discussed that ourselves. I read 100 books sometimes, some years.
Yeah.
And I've decided at that event 4 years ago, I want to create a book, but with solutions. And also at the event, there was two fantastic speakers. And at the time, I would not speak in public. It was just something that I was terrified of doing. So I knew at that stage I needed to become a better speaker. So I joined Toastmasters when I came back, and I fully embraced that. And at the same time then I wrote the book. So I printed it off, got it into the hands of a few people. As you mentioned, loads said, ooh, yeah, Roy, you have to be careful here. You can't be exposing these things. And I actually wasn't afraid, because I felt I want this to get out there. And it was more, my mother was like, what about your children? Aren't you afraid about your children? And it was what that kind of scared me. And it's only since what's going on at the moment that I have seen how much people are awoke. You know, you can have conversations with people and they know what's going on. Whereas before, if I mentioned some of the things that I knew, very few people knew. And a lot of people then would actually go away and research it. And they come back to me a couple of months later, or maybe a year later, when they see me, and they go, oh, you were dead right with that thing. So with my speaking, when I was doing all the different Toastmaster speeches, I was playing around with the different topics. And I was even doing question and answers, ones where I'd be grilled. And I wanted to see what it would be like being attacked, because I know that's the industry that we're in. People want to attack you when you're spreading the truth, because they want to believe what they've been fed. And it hurts.
They want to stick to the mainstream narrative, yeah.
Exactly. So, you know, for some people, it hurts. They have a belief system. And then all of a sudden you're coming along and saying, no, it's actually not like this. And a lot of people go on the attack mode. Whereas I'm not out to actually attack anybody. I'm just saying, be open. And even what I say, even in my book, I'm saying, don't even believe what I say. Even research it. Just constantly research. And I've seen your video. Like you're showing exactly how you found the information. It's not you just coming out and saying these things. So I even got my book. I got it fact checked. And the first time they came back with loads of discrepancies saying, no. And I was able to prove everything that I was saying. So it all stayed in.
Yeah, which is difficult. Even when you prove stuff at times to people, there's a lot of people that it's hot stuff and they want to stay away from that as much as they can, because when you don't go through the mainstream narrative and you step outside the box a small bit and you have a different idea, even if you can fully prove there's corruption in all various industries, you'll find it very difficult to get actual people that still want to take you on board. They kind of go, yeah, well, we know what you're saying, right? Yeah, it's right, but kind of we can only say that behind closed doors. We don't like getting that into the public domain. Exactly. And you probably found, like you're just saying, you probably got a lot of pushback on that as well when you went to various people. And were you kind of shocked by it because you felt you had a lot of information that you could prove, and were you kind of going, hey, look, I'm onto something here? it should be just a case of finding a decent person that will look over it and publish and run me through the mill in the whole situation and get it out there. But it wasn't like that. Was there many doors closed in your face and people were, we agree with you, but push it on to somebody else. I don't want to actually publish it for you.
No, I did not want to go to a publisher because that's one of the things that I'm showing. The media is actually corrupt. So there's 5 corporations own 90% of the media. So we're told, like, I mean, they've all been caught. In Ireland, RT, they've been caught lying. BBC in the UK, CNN, they're just constantly lying. You've even shown it with our videos, they're all repeating the same thing. They're told what to say. So it's, unfortunately, it's the same with books. So if I go through the typical model, one, they don't actually pay people the proper amount because you're just going on there confirming that you've made X amount of sales. Like my guest that I have had on last week, he was actually saying in one of the book publishers, they actually stopped it because they didn't like what he was saying. So they stopped the print. And he had people telling him they had bought the book from, say, Amazon or different fields. And he wasn't getting the commission from it. So, like, I prefer do it myself, and just print off. If somebody wants it, then it can be actually shipped. Right.
Good stuff. And so you're actually thinking of releasing it? You have it obviously done, but I mean, is there a certain launch date that people can look out for, or
so people can
I'm sure people listening to this will be kind of anxious, I think, to actually, once we're finished, to actually get a hold of this. So let's get it out there now. Have you an actual launch date for it, or?
It will be, like, the plan is to have it by next month. And what's happening is that I'm going through it all because I had a lot of links. And as you're probably aware, lots of the information that's out there, the truth, is being buried and hidden and removed. So I had some links on it with proof of what is done, and now they're gone. So now I have to kind of reevaluate that and just kind of a few tweaks to it.
Of course, everything is censored these days. So the people obviously be anxious to know. So if we open the book a small bit and actually dive into it, I mean, what kind of sectors are you talking about? Are they sectors worldwide? Are they kind of based around Ireland? Or what areas are you mainly covering with this corruption? And how did you get solid proof of this situation?
Okay, so the first thing is it's international, because I've got friends all over the world, and obviously, like, I'm living in Poland, so I see what's going on here, and just keeping track of Ireland and the UK as well. So I'd see the UK, but with stuff going on in America, so there's a lot of countries that I'm watching how it's actually, how they operate and the different things that are going on. So the different topics would be like the banking sector, legal, pharmaceutical, food. They're affected everywhere, and the corruption is going on worldwide. And I've seen it, like say the bailiffs. That's one that I didn't expect. So, like, I think in Ireland we call them the sheriffs, and like there's a lot of trickery that goes on there. So what I have seen here is they're supposed to try to get you the best price. So they're supposed to put it on the website, and they put it up for 1 second and take a screenshot of that. So they're pretending that it's up. I've had situations here where they actually bribed everybody in the room and they had their own people buying the property. And I had another case where a property that they were in cahoots with a valuation. So a person doing the value of the property, and they really downvalued it. So a property in Polish, like, I talk in euros because it's probably easier rather than Polish currency. But a property that was valued at over more than $1 million, they were saying that, it was only worth $500,000, and they were giving all negative things. And you don't do that on a valuation. That's not how a valuation works. And it was afterwards we found out what they were doing. So the first bailiff session that they do, it's at 75% value. So nobody turns up. So then the next one is at 50%. And if they can do it that nobody's turning up, or only their own people, they're basically buying something for $250,000 that's worth more than $1 million.
Yeah, you can see the method unfolding. And as far as, obviously, it's quite a big topic to go into every industry in depth as it is. But if we kind of go into various ones, touching on a few points in each one. So say it likes of the medical industry. What have you found in that basically shocked you, if you want to put it that way, that you thought, hey, hang on a second here, or something is just doesn't feel right? that made you basically go out and say, look, this and this does not add up, and I witnessed it plenty of times, and you know what, people need to be more aware of this, because as you know, and I'm sure that in general the public are obviously never aware of most things, and if people were aware of most things that are put in front of them, well, you can make better decisions to move forward in life. But governments and mainstream media don't want you to have that information, because, as you know, information is extremely powerful, and it's something like the gatekeepers themselves only like to hold.
Exactly. So like what happened with me is a lot of the stuff was stuff that I experienced first before I started kind of delving further. So I had, in my early 20s, I had a trapped nerve. It was called sciatica, which basically means it's a shooting pain down your leg. And I know some people can
Pretty
get it
common
down.
with a few people, yeah.
It is very common, and I heard a few people had it. So, like, first of all, went to the doctor and they gave me painkillers, and it was upsetting my stomach. And I remember it felt like I was drunk. I was bouncing off the walls. I was like, I don't like this. Then I tried a few different alternative things, and that wasn't helping either. Tried the chiropractor and different things. So they told me, look, get an epidural. So I got the epidural, and that was painful because you're awake, but then they put you to sleep after they give you the injection, and they manipulate your body. So when I woke up, I was getting pains down my other side of my leg as well. So that wasn't kind of helping. And I was like, okay, this isn't good. And I was really, you're done, because when you're feeling pain constantly, you can't focus.
No.
So like, and I mean, I see different people that have it, like, so it does really affect everything around you, and it affects, your family and everything, because they're living with that. So they said, you have to get an operation. You've got to protrude discs. So the disc is actually pressing on the nerve. Just believe what they said. So I said, yeah, okay, get the operation. Got the operation, and still in pain, still in agony. And I was giving up. I really was. I didn't want to live at this stage. It was like,
you're at your wit's end.
I was at my wit's end, definitely. And I got, I don't know how I came across it, but I got a book, Healing Back Pain by John Sarno, and I read it. And through a mental thing, was able to cure myself. And I was like, this is weird. I'm like,
right.
So in the following years, obviously you'd come across different people with this. And I told them all, and every single person was cured of it. And I said, like, why are the doctors pushing this when you can cure people without it? And they don't want people to know.
Of course, they don't like the natural medicine side of things, because doctors in general, they go to college and basically they're taught about drugs, and when you go into them, they're basically looking up stuff on the computer, and it's not anything natural. So it's like, in general, they're not actually getting to the root cause of where the actual problem exists. It's basically just fanning over it and suppressing it for now, and it can come back in the future. But so yeah, that's interesting about that. Anything else that in the medical industry side of things that you found, like generally it's from the top down, we know that these corruptions happen. What more did you find?
Well, one thing that I had investigated, because I'd seen The Guardian had posted where I think it was Smith Klein Beechin was fined $3 billion for bribery. So I started researching, and I knew it happened. So like the easiest way to explain it is there's two drugs that a doctor can prescribe for you. There could be one that's €10 and another that's 100. The one for €10 could be a lot better, but because of the kickbacks they're going to prescribe the one for €100. And I checked with a good friend of mine that's working in a hospital, and because of all the pharmaceutical companies are based in Ireland because of the tax loop, and I said, which ones don't do kickbacks? And I was told they all do.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned as well about when they're in school, they're learning no natural stuff. I checked with a lot of countries. I think it's Albania is the only one. They don't learn natural cures or about foods, because like there's one thing that I studied, and I have it in the book as well. It's like the best way. The people that were living the longest were the in the Himalayas, the Hunza. They were living to over 100 years. Was common, and basically a doctor. And the book is like 60 or 80 years old. The Dr. Wrench, he was studying them, and they started doing tests on rats. So basically, rats have the same organs as ourselves. So a rat of 50 years is equivalent. Of 2 years is equivalent to a human of 50 years. So they fed them the same food. They were doing all crop rotation and everything. So that's why they were actually getting very healthy food, good minerals. And the rats were perfect. No tumors, no cancers, no signs, nothing. And then they gave them cheap Indian food, and they had all the diseases that we see today: skin problems, cancers, tumors. They gave them the English poor man's food, and after 16 days they became cannibalistic. So when I was reading that, I was like, okay, so food is such an impact on what we're doing. And what do we see today? GMO, they're just
Mm,
tampering with the food. You've all
of
the
course.
labeling, like say aspartame, like I'll
Yeah.
tell people, listen, that was actually banned. And
Yeah.
people did, and they don't care. They're eating chewing gum. I say, look, that's got aspartame and it's banned. And it
Mm.
actually causes cancer in rats, which is, that tells you straight away. It's in
I,
Diet Colas. People
I
are
was just about
taking
to say it.
Diet
Yeah.
Colas and they think, oh, this is better for me than the
Yeah.
normal cola.
Yeah. But it's not.
And unfortunately, it's not. So,
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Yeah, the food industry is a massive topic to get into. And like you're saying, it's globally, so it's not just Ireland, European countries as a whole. And what do you think is their idea or ideology, I suppose you could say, behind it? Is it just basically to pump out more shit stuff, basically, and at bigger prices, or and obviously the doctors and hospitals, I mean, how do they survive? They survive on sick people. Otherwise, the industry would be gone down the sewer pretty much.
yeah,
But from what you uncovered, what did you feel, and talking to people and stuff, what did you feel the idea was behind it? Because I'm sure there's a lot of good nurses and doctors in hospitals, and they're just unaware of this. Some so they're not all
yeah,
involved in knowing this is a big collusion together. It's generally just
absolutely not. No, there's,
a
I
handful of
mean,
people at the top.
exactly. I mean, there obviously, if a doctor's getting a kickback
Mm,
and he's making a lot of money from that, as much as he thinks it's okay, like if he looks himself in the mirror and says, okay, I'm actually taking money as a kickback just to get my customer to pay more,
yeah,
they need to kind of think seriously about that. But do like all the nurses and everything, no, I mean, a lot of them haven't a clue what's going on.
of course. Yeah, no, I'd fully agree with that. Same with the whole situation that's going on at the moment with the COVID-19 and all that. I mean, a lot of them are actually clueless to what's going on as well. Just a few again at the top, controlling downwards. But so that's a bit on the actual food industry and stuff. And if we go into you were saying like the banking sector as well, which most people will kind of go, yeah, we know the banks are corrupt for years and years, but what could you give us as a kind of an insight that maybe the average person on the street wouldn't know, or would be kind of taken back a small bit by?
I suppose I can, because what I'm kind of documenting is what I did. So I had lost
Right.
my
Yeah.
property. They took my property off me, and they send you an affidavit, which is their sworn statement saying that you've done this, this, and this. And if you don't respond, they basically take your property off. So I know you're aware of the amount of people in Ireland. Like there's thousands of people their properties have been taken off, probably
Of
100,000,
course.
if
Yeah.
not more. And like there's the direct provision accommodation and the hotels that they're living, like the cost is 10 times more to the state. So there's some hidden agenda going on in there alone. But so I responded. So I defend, at the time I'd lost everything, so I had to defend myself. And I was showing that, say for example, like Dennis O'Brien, he got a write-off. He's a billionaire living in a tax haven country.
Yeah.
And
A good friend
what
of
I
Hillary
had,
Clinton.
yeah, exactly.
That
And
says it all.
like what I had is I had an offer on the property, and because I wanted to close it off and full and final settlement, and they wouldn't agree, and they sold it for a lot less. They sold it like for like 50,000 less, and they wanted me to pay the difference. So
Right.
I had emails and I had signatures from 20 different people from the bank, and there was ICS at the time and in Bank of Ireland, and it's the exact same signature, even though they're all different names. So I
Right.
sent that, and I had lots of different proof of different things that I had done. And when I was in the court, they couldn't respond because they have a barrister, and they're supposed to respond to my, and they could never respond. And in Ireland, it's a strange system compared to most countries, because most countries, like, you have the plaintiff defendant and each have their solicitor, and then you have the judge. In Ireland, you're in a room with maybe 100, 150 people, and it's normally all solicitors. Most people weren't even turning up. So I was listening to different court cases. And like I saw people going in there, like a woman, she said, my husband died from the stress of this. I don't know what to do. And the judge says,
Jesus.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, but yeah, it's not my problem. Rule in favor of the banks.
Yeah.
Another person, they were saying, we got KPMG to do a check on the interest that was charged. It was 15,000 over. When was that? 3 years ago. You should have brought it up with them then. Rule in favor of the banks, plus interest,
No
Plus,
sympathy there.
no sympathy. Every single person. I didn't see anyone winning, and like 8 times I had to go back because they weren't able to reply to my affidavit. They were telling them, you better respond. But then there was a judge would be totally against me. And like I was defending myself and I just wing it at the end. So they'd say, okay, come back. At one stage, the judge said, why haven't you responded to him? Offered me €1,400 travel expenses, which I never got. And then said, you better have it by the next 3 weeks. So they didn't. And I went there thinking I was going to win this and I was going to be done and dusted. And when I went there, I think I had to be there about 9 in the morning. And the same thing, the room was full of people and the judge said, oh, this is going to take too long, we'll do it after the break. And you can't leave because if they call your name and you're not there, it's different for the solicitors. They'll just postpone it. But when it's you, they don't do that. So, and I'd actually encourage the listeners, you're allowed to go into the court, go in there and watch it. And there's a few people defending people. There's like the Hub in Ireland is a very good one. And Ben Gilroy as well is another good guy. They're helping people defend themselves, with their rights. So when I was there at 2:00, he started, and then he said, no, it's taking too long. We'll go to the end. It was around 6:00 or after 6 when he done it. I was physically exhausted because you're constantly listening.
Yeah.
So the barrister started reading out his stuff. Then the judge just repeated it, didn't really let me talk, and just was aggressive towards me. Somebody stood up to try to defend me. He said, what have you done? You've no say in this. Made him sit down. And they basically just said, oh, ruling in favor of the banks. And I said, then they were trying to get expenses and interest payments. So I said, okay, listen, I'm trying to resolve this for a year. It's been dragged out and they haven't responded to my affidavit. So that's why it's dragged out so long. So he actually ruled with no interest and no payment to the thing. So it wasn't too bad. It was €65,000 as opposed to it could have been maybe 300,000 because I had 8 days in court, like over the period of about a year. That could have been a lot of money. So I wanted to appeal. And in some countries, if you appeal, it's only 65,000 versus nothing. But in Ireland, it's a case of it's 65 or plus it'll open up back to what it was, plus the additional. So I was looking at a case of 65 versus probably 400,000 or 500,000. I said, I'm going to do that. So then I started investigating. I want to go to the EU about this. And it was like, no, you have to appeal before you can get to the EU. And
another barrier.
Another barrier. And,
of course, to make it more difficult again. So you'd hopefully just turn around and go away.
Yeah.
It's interesting. When was this? Was this actually after or during the recession or?
It was because it was because like it happened around 2008 in America. It was a bit later when I think it was around 2012 maybe.
Right.
2011, 2012.
A couple of years into it. I mean, even the times we had in Ireland, even worldwide, people throwing back the keys in the doors, they're heading off to England, different parts of the world, and leave their house they had invested for years behind them. The amount of suicides that went up over people, bankers, as I call them, the white collar criminals, they're constantly going through the system. And say use your own personal experiences, as you've said yourself. And how are things today on that front? Is everything all right, or system-wise?
I'm just constantly fighting, and I'm constantly watching them. And like what they did at one stage is they took a case against me. They were wrong because like they were putting wrong bank account numbers now, and then they just cancel it. And I said to the judge, I said, look, they brought this case against me. I have to travel over and defend myself, and then they just pull it. They can do that as often as they want, he said. So you're fighting people with an unlimited budget against people that are basically after losing their properties and they're basically struggling to survive. And they're doing this because they know that they can't fight them.
Of course.
And the other thing is there's vulture funds. So 2 of my properties were sold to a vulture fund. And I've proved it because just by meeting the right people, there's a portfolio number. So they're supposed to get you the right price. So that's kind of going back to the bailiff things as well. So the receivers. And they have no proof of how it was advertised or the money got or anything. It was never told to me. So, and that happened with a lot of people, and they just can't. They won't respond to you.
Crazy, it's but it's crazy, but it doesn't surprise me at the same time. It was always based in government bank situation constantly the world over. So we've covered 2 sections there alone. And as far as you were saying also was their legal system, you cover as well. You cover, it was a bit of charities in your book. So legal system, some of that can go hand in hand with the banks and what you've just talked about pretty much.
Exactly.
Yeah. As far as charities go, because obviously charities is another situation where people feel, they're doing good, morally good in their own right, and they send off €100 or whatever they might be able to
Yeah.
afford to donate, and they think, wherever this child or whoever might be in Africa or some part of the world, that they're getting all of this, or 99% of it. But as we know, often in the cases, there's hierarchies at the top, and before they're the middlemen, and once it gets to them, then the poor child doesn't get to see a lot of it actually at all. But how did you find that, or what did you uncover in that area alone?
Yeah, it was kind of frightening actually that like you'd assume, I mean, obviously there's an administration charge, so you say maybe 1%, maybe max 10%,
Yeah,
but there's a lot of situations where they only donate 1% of the money that they receive.
incredible.
And like the Clinton Foundation, it's 3%. And like the Irish government have been given a lot of money towards that. So has Dennis O'Brien.
He has, yeah.
And yes, so if you just follow the money and follow the different people, you can see it. There's another one that I mentioned. It's Lady Gaga, because a lot of people think, oh, she's very good. You see her talking on one stage with the Dalai Lama, and she had raised, and this is all like you can see this online. This isn't just me pulling figures out of the head. Like I
Yeah, it's
think
been
something
documented.
1.8 million that she got, and 5,000 went to the charity. 1.8 million and 5,000 went to the charity, and people are
Incredible.
giving hard-earned money to kind of help this. Another one is the Red Cross. Like the Red Cross raised something like 2 billion for Haiti. They built 6 houses.
Mm.
Like you could build a village for that for 2 billion.
Of course, it was
You know?
it was the same with the Clintons went over there when all that happened many years ago over there, and they got destroyed and stuff over there, and they went in saying, yeah, saying we'll look after this and so on and so on. Dennis O'Brien was actually involved there at the time as well, and they were all donating money, and there was millions upon millions going through it, and in the end, I can't remember the exact figure, but it was next to nothing that the Haitian people actually got. They were as worse off when Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton were there, and when they basically left the island, and they're not obviously welcome back to the island as it is from the Haitian people. After what they've done there, I think it was over something like 90% of the money. If it mightn't be exactly in that figure, 90 odd percent of it went back into the Clinton Foundation. That should have went to the island. That many people have put in, as you say, hard-earned money was pumped into it for a complete disastrous situation that you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. What happened to the people over there, and the water system, the sewage, the housing, just the living conditions was abnormal. And the Clintons, of course, all over the media making it look good that we're doing this and we're doing that, and a couple of their cronies, of course, usual suspect with them. And they left the island, and they pretty much left the island with money in their back pocket.
Exactly.
It's no surprise, but that's a topic for another day, actually, is the Clintons, because we could go into one on that, and we'd probably make a couple of podcasts out of it. But and what else can people basically find so in your book, and besides those actual sectors? I mean, you took a lot of time to basically invest in this book, to sit down, to write it, to go through it and document it, research it, make sure everything is bulletproof. And was the reasoning behind that you done it? What was the main reason? Was it basically like, look, I'm after finding this, part of me is shocked, the other part of me is like, well, I kind of expected some of it, but that you just basically want to make more people aware and get some sort of message out to people to say, look, this is what's happening. Make people kind of scratch their head a small bit and say, look, don't be fooled. This is the other side that basically the mainstream media and governments will bury as much as they can. They do not want you to see. What's your thoughts on that?
It's like it was a case of, as you mentioned, loads of people committed suicide. It's all hidden. Lots of people going through serious depression at the moment because of
Of
it.
course,
The
yeah.
homelessness, all orchestrated. Like, there's no need for it. And I'm kind of thick-skinned. I just didn't affect me. I mean, obviously it hurt me, but I was
Mm.
able to get over it. And I don't want anyone else to do that. I don't want anyone else to go through this. And when there's people just laughing at the back, seeing other people, it's not about people. They don't have feelings. It's about power and money. And, this has to be stopped.
Of course, with control and depopulation, I mean, you could go into a whole
Yeah.
host of agendas and things that's in the background that is quite openly talked about. Well, not even so much talked about sometimes, but there is plenty of documentation that you can actually get there, either if it's from Bill Gates has been saying it constantly, of the United Nations. I mean, there's loads of stuff that's actually there, but people just are not aware because it's not in the public domain. in your face in the public domain, I should say. It is there, but people generally don't know where to research or where to find this actual stuff that will just make them aware that actually what is really going on around us from day to day. But as far as that goes,
like there's one that, because I think everybody's been affected by cancer, and like you can't say nothing, you can't have natural health or anything because they shut people down. There's loads of doctors, they're shut down straight away. You hear cases of where they're being, they've bumped them off, and people can't prove it, so it's just kind of, they have the information. So there's 40-50 doctors in the US that have been basically disappeared. And so if you look at the amount, like I think nearly every listener has somebody that has died from cancer. I mean, I have a lot. I've carried a lot of coffins because of people that have died of cancer.
Yeah.
And when you check the different alternatives to it, there was a guy in the 1930s, Royal Raymond Rife, and he had the Rife machine that he was able to cure cancer with. And all the tests that he had done, they shut it down. He was even, there's a very good program on Gaia and it was blocked on a lot of them. I had to use a VPN to actually get it. It was most countries, this is blocked. And it's about 2 hours, but it is a fascinating interview. And they retrieved the tapes from him. And he's stating that this was in the 30s. Like the recordings were a few years later, maybe the 50s or the 60s. But he was stating that there was like 127 million that was donated for cancer at the time, and 50,000 was paid in. So even then, it was tiny fraction. So like a guy has created a machine by frequencies to actually kill cancer, but yet they tell us no. They push people towards chemotherapy, which is like you're burning people from the inside out. Like it is terrible. And some people think it's the only alternative, and it's not. There are so many different things. There's different foods that you can eat, just not to be eating acid stuff, get rid of the sugar. There's a lot of things you can be doing, and they don't want you to know, because they're looking for they're looking for the customer when you get sick, as long as you can, and then, as you mentioned, depopulation.
Of course, is a big one on the agenda. Yeah, the whole cancer situation. I mean, I believe there has been a cure there for a long, long time. But when you weigh it up and you see, well, people say, well, if there is a cure there, why don't they bring it out? Because surely, industries and government stuff the world over, they all can't be that bad. Surely they bring it out if people are dying. Well, unfortunately, in the real world, that isn't the way it actually works. Because even if you go back to, say, I think it was in the 1920s, sometime around then, you had like the Rockefellers, who basically infiltrated the education schools and on holistic therapies and, natural medicines and all that, which I think was about 50-50 roughly at one stage. And as he got infiltrated, basically, just as you said, he basically shut them all down, steamrolled them all. And if anybody knows about the Rockefellers, I mean, I mean,
like they're calling that alternative medicine. That was medicine.
Yeah.
The pharmaceutical is the alternative, which is bad frequencies that are causing huge side effects. Like my son the other day, he's 6. He said, "Dad, why are they speaking so fast on the ad?" And I said, "Because they're saying the side effects." Like, who's allowed that? This side effects are about 3 times the speed when they're, and it's just allowed. So if you look at all the advertisement in the TV and everything, it's all pharmaceutical. Because they're basically, it's in your head, and then people think, oh, they're just brainwashing us.
It's a form of programming that has been going on for decades, and that's what they basically do, is basically put a wall of their own shit, for want of a better word, in front of you. So you basically, most people don't peel back the layers, and they don't go through it, and they kind of accept it. And the more it's on you, if you're at home, it's on your radio, it's on your TV, it's on your bloody car radio. It's constantly around you, so you're subconsciously even hearing it, even if you're not fully focused in the actual what's going on. It's constantly circulating in your brain all the time, and when that constantly goes on day to day, week to week, the average people, especially the older generation, I find as well, are more kind of, if you tell them what's maybe really going on, they're a bit like, oh, I don't know, is that a bit of a conspiracy? That's very skeptical stuff, because they've been so indoctrinated and programmed for decades, just in the one system. And it's sad, and it's obviously in the benefit of even going back to the cancer. I mean, if they had a cure for cancer at the minute, I mean, they would lose, I wouldn't say what, billions, trillions worldwide. They would lose, because if they have a cure for it, the amount of money they're making off sick people is, it's unbelievable. It's incredible what they're making off it. So it's not in their interest to come out and actually tell you, do you know what, we have a cure for cancer, and everybody's queuing up and everyone's free. They're all free from the cancer, I should say. But yeah, it's some definitely good topics on that as well. And yeah, it's interesting with the charities and the banking and stuff like that. And was there any aspects, actually, an interesting point is, so a couple of people said that you actually shared your book with. Was there any particular point, well, I'm sure there was more than one, but that they kind of came back to you or stood out from them? Because did you find there were people that were more so, for want of a better word, shall I say, were they red pilled, or were they more kind of blue pilled, as in were they more ignorant to what's kind of going on, or were they kind of going, yeah, no, that's right, I kind of knew that, and yeah, but we better not put it into the public at the same time, because, you know, you might have that death warrant going across your forehead. Was there a couple of factors that it kind of went to page 27, or for example, saying, do you know what, this is actually like, wow, you're actually crazy if you're going to actually put this into the public?
Like most of the people that I gave to, I would class them as being kind of awake. They know what's kind of going on.
Yeah.
But as you know yourself, you start taking off layers, then you see the next layer, and you go, there's things you said, this is
start
impossible.
to connect
There's
the
no
dots.
way.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, when you do research, and I tell people, don't go to Google, because if you go to Google and you start saying, if you research like Wi-Fi and the dangers to that,
yeah, the 5G,
they'll say it's safe. Everything is safe. Everything is safe.
Of course. Yeah.
If you go on a different, like DuckDuckGo or something, start researching different things and start going to the specialists. There's a few specialists coming out, or even ex-Vodafone people that are coming out and saying these things. So, like, don't take my word for it. Don't take Uncle Google's word for it. Just start doing proper research. And the other thing is, like, I think you have to come from a situation of love and compassion, and not, because a lot of the times there people are, let's attack this industry, create something different. Because if I create something that's natural and healthy and we have a success rate, you are going to send people there, and then you stop going to the pharmaceutical ones, and slowly but surely the bad boys will just fizzle out.
Exactly.
Because if you attack them, they have unlimited budgets. You cannot attack. You have to just create alternatives or have solutions, or that's the way you have to go. You have to go from compassion.
It's it's the same. It's I'll try and avoid a doctor if I can at all costs. I've went to acupuncture plenty of times before for various things. With acupuncture, you don't even have to have something wrong with you that you feel is necessary. I need to go, but it's just good to go to any. You just feel amazing. It gets your whole body back in tune again, and it's fantastic. But and I highly recommend that to anybody, even though I know plenty of people are skeptical of acupuncture because of needles and so on, and it's actually not. It's just like a simple pinch, and it's telling you it's all worth it. Once those needles are in you and you're lying off in the bed, you don't want them taken out.
What the funny thing is, like, you'll feel, even afterwards, you touch the points, you'll feel the electricity shooting down your body,
down into those pressure points.
It's fascinating.
It is, and it's very good. And I think even in recent years, last couple of years alone, I find from talking to people as well, the likes of the acupuncture industry and that, I think in the more natural, holistic medicine sort of side of things, I think they are starting to make a comeback compared to if you went, say, 10 or 15 years ago. Even my own parents, for example, they were at one stage, they were very skeptical. It's because they were not brought up in that manner for acupuncturist people, as a good example. So they're kind of unaware to this situation, because everything was like the doctor, and whatever the doctor says, regardless, it's right. Even if it's wrong, it's still right in their minds. And that's the way they were sort of programmed decade after decade. But I think it's good now with the wide spread information that's going around, and access to the internet, access to proper decent sites, you can actually really see what's going on, and you can get more value and benefit to people out there that can be naturally healed, away from these toxic chemicals and drugs that people want to basically pump into the doctors and so on. And some of the doctors, in fairness, and they don't actually know themselves. They're just like robots, for want of a better example, that they just basically pass on what they're told from above. And from college, they've pretty much learned no natural way of doing things, and pass out the drugs to the person and prop up big pharma again. And that's what they're mainly kind of doing. That's their industry. So they would obviously see the likes of the acupuncture industry, holistic, natural side of things, herbs and normal vitamins and stuff like that. They would see that obviously as a threat to their own industry. So something that was kind of wiped out the guts of 100 years ago by the Rockefellers. I feel it's definitely making a comeback. And obviously they're trying to slate that. They're kind of, any first opportunity to get, you won't see it highlighted in certain areas because they want to diss it. It's like most things. If you don't go with the mainstream narrative, like I was saying before, you're labeled, you're called all sorts of terms, and you're the worst person on earth. So that's generally their methodology, is just label, and hopefully destroy you. And people have lost their jobs just because they had labels in their head, which is completely untrue at times. But that's unfortunately the way the media have it on you, and those big tech giants at Silicon Valley, who we know are not our friends at the best of times. So, so you're going to release it, hopefully, you're saying, in the next couple of weeks. Where can people actually find this? Are you going to go to Amazon? Are you going to go shops, or how will they?
What I'll be doing is selling it directly first, so
Right.
from my website and selling it, and then I'll just take it. I'm planning on doing like affiliate links, so working with people that can actually be selling it as well. Main thing for me is I want to get it into about the top 20 languages. I just want to get it out there, so I'll do the audio as well. I can do the audio myself. I've done a few podcasts. I'll create the audio and have it as an ebook. Like some people like an ebook. So the ebook obviously is an easy one. They can just come in and click and they'll be able to get it. But the physical book, it can be shipped. I get it printed in Poland. It can be shipped around the world. And
Right.
I look eventually, because I'm even investigating that. I'm looking at the different countries, and I'm trying to keep the price point low. So I look at the printing costs in different countries, and if I can get somebody that's actually going to distribute it that can be trusted, then I can do it in the different countries as well. So I can do
Nice.
Poland, Europe, Europe from Poland. That's not a problem. But I'll check about America and other countries.
And is there anything else that you'd like to actually describe about the book yourself, for people obviously that are unaware of it and don't actually know what they're getting into? Even though I know we've covered quite a few topics on it already. What would be your best way of actually describing it to someone if they were to stop you in the streets there?
It's basically,
I love the name of it, by the way. Yeah.
yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
It's exposing corruption in all industries, but with solutions. Because, as we mentioned, we read a lot of books, and there's some fantastic books out there, but
Of
a lot of
course.
the time they're not given a solution. So, and my hope is, like, when I got it out to a lot of people, my hope was that I get more solutions back, which I didn't. I was hoping that I'd even be able to add to the ones that I have. But I know that eventually there's plenty of decent people out there. They'll think of different things that I haven't thought of. It'll all be shared. My long-term goal is to create a non-profit charity that's fully transparent, and that I'm not taking £1 million out. I'm not going to take anything out of this, so that it'll be online. So if an investment comes in, and we show exactly what's done with it. And I think by actually showing how something can be done without being fraudulent, you'll inspire others to do it. And we'll be watching different, because you can share the people that are doing right, and just show how to track the ones that are, like, there's a link. I can't remember offhand, but there's a link of the charities that they expose all the different charities and the percentages that go. So you can even do that. So even if someone donates, that they can check this and go, okay, like this charity is doing very good, and give their money in that direction. At least they
Nice.
know that there's actually real benefit to it.
Yeah, yeah. As I say, they're getting bang for their buck. They know it's exactly
Exactly.
going to the person that it should be going to.
Exactly.
Which is fantastic. But yeah, other than that, that's what actually my next question was because you're right in what you say. I've read plenty of books myself, and they expose all the thing. It really draws you in so many various industries as well of corruption, but they expose all the things, show you all the bad points. But what they don't do is they don't give you a solution. So I'm interested. I'm sure the viewers are interested as well. As what solutions have you come up with?
Okay, so say for the medical industry, that a doctor signs a document that if they're caught bribery, they lose their license.
Right.
And if you have a system that's online, and 5% of doctors sign this and agree to this, and you're going to go to a doctor, which doctor would you go to? So eventually the decent doctors will start getting more business, and the ones that aren't agreeing to it. Like, there's a lot of work in a lot of these things, but there's solutions, and there's different solutions for all the different things. Like the pharmaceutical is a hard one, because, like, they're all not $1 billion industry, they're $1 trillion industry.
Yeah.
And, like, if you look at it, it's okay, most of the pension funds are investing in this. So some people their pension is actually going in to support this. So do you really want to be funding a fraudulent company, or would you prefer to put your money into your pension fund into something that's doing good for mankind?
Yeah.
And if
Makes
people are
sense.
conscious of that, everybody's vote counts. Some people think it doesn't, but it does. So every single decision you make has an impact. And if you just make people aware of it, and like even if you only do a decision, like you have made a little change,
Yeah.
and it starts with you.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more with you. Um, so that's good. Yeah, we got some solutions and stuff in as well. And I'm fascinated to get a hold of the book myself.
And
uh,
I've kept it kind of in a format that you can just pick it up and you can just flick through the chapters, because I even mentioned that there might be a case that you don't agree with what I'm saying, and I don't want you to get offended with that. You can just look at, I don't agree with what he said there, and flip on to the next, because I could give you some health things or some products or some stuff that you like, even the roll on deodorants and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of these things that are actually toxic to us, or even the makeup women are wearing, or the just the products that you're using. If you can't eat it,
yeah,
you shouldn't be putting it in your body. And it just like, I'm giving different solutions, like say the toothpaste as well, don't have the fluoride in it.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And unfortunately in Ireland, we have the fluoride in the water. In Poland, you don't. Some countries, some parts of the States have it. And I'm kind of giving solutions as well of how to go to the councils, because they're looking for the vote. So if you can get enough people to go to because there is a few game changers there, and if you've got the right people going to them, and just be accountable. A lot of times you have people writing documents to you, and they just sign it as the company. Always make
Right.
someone accountable. Or someone's ringing you from the bank or whatever. This is bank of wherever. Who exactly am I talking to? And just make them accountable. And sometimes
Yeah.
if they say, I'm recording this call, say, yeah, I'm recording it as well. You hear them panicking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kind of reverse things and just,
Yeah.
just kind of know your rights. There's a lot of people out there. I know it's a bit of research, and there's a lot of people give you the rights, and just know your rights. Don't just take it that, because then they will abuse you. So you must kind of know your own rights and stand up for your rights.
Exactly. Don't take it lying down, because there's too many people worldwide that are constantly doing that.
Yeah.
Um, so basically, you've kind of dabbled a small bit in it as well. I was going to ask you, what does the next 12 months or so look like? What's the road ahead look for Roy? You mentioned the charity.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
that's the, yeah.
what we didn't actually go into a small bit actually on was you have your own podcast as well. Well, you've actually quite a few, but your more recent one that actually applies to the book that you're bringing out.
Exactly.
Tell us a small bit on that.
So that's called Awakening. So the awakeningpodcast.org is the actual domain name that I have for it. And like, I'm going to have probably 2 episodes a week on that, but like with doctors. And my main thing is I'm telling people to come with solutions. There's no point in listening to something unless you can have a solution. So the one that I've done was a lot on food and products like that. And he's given loads of solutions, and that's what
Good,
people
good.
need. So you can make the change. And I'm also telling people, don't get overwhelmed. Don't go, oh my God, I need to do all this. No, just like this week, change your toothpaste. Next week, change your shampoo. Because by the end of the
Exactly.
year,
In
you're
small
after making
increments.
enough changes that
Yeah,
is totally helping your body, do the different detoxes. Like I was even
exactly.
saying to somebody recently, like a lot of the stuff is all marketing that they've applied to, like the shampoo. That was a marketing trick that they used, that they say repeat. So the guy made a lot of money by just putting in the word repeat. And I said that to someone recently, and they didn't believe me. And I was able to show them.
Yeah, yeah,
And just remember, and I heard of one with toothpaste that they made the opening bigger just so that people would use more toothpaste. So there's a lot of sneaky tricks out there. And once you're
yeah,
conscious of it, and instead of like, what I say to people is, you can have different conversations. You can be bitching, complaining about something. You can talk about, or you can say, okay, how can we fix this? If something is annoying you, do something about it. Get people together that agree with it and make a plan, and just reach out to others that are doing the same. Don't attack. Come from a place of passion and love, and just see, okay, what can we do better? Because they have unlimited budgets. So if you attack them, you're not going to win. It's better just create something different. And there's a lot of people that are creating products now that are natural, and they're doing very well because people are conscious of it. And just
yeah.
look at it like that.
It's I couldn't agree more. It's definitely go down the more natural route, and there is plenty of stuff out there at the moment, even from the likes of shampoos or normal products I even use myself. I'm constantly checking on the back of stuff. You know, has it been tested on animals? But then I'm not going to use it. It just, the small little things is to make that little difference, and it only costs an extra 30 seconds. Flip over a bottle and just look at the back of it, and see what's going on. And so that you make one little bit of difference. It might cost you a small bit extra, but so be it. If you can afford it, go for it. At the end of the day, food is a massive thing. It's like anything. It's like your body is like a car in one sense, like a big engine. Because if you for a car, for example, you can get decent oil, and you can get bad oil, and some people might, we'll get the cheap one because it'll do the trick as well. But the thing, obviously, by spending an extra 20 or 30 quid on the actual decent stuff, you'll actually get a lot more mileage out of the actual wagon itself, and without less mishaps going wrong in between. And the body is the same way. What you put into the body is what you get out. It affects your emotions, your thought process, your skin. There's a whole host of things that it affects it. So by putting good, proper quality food into your actual body as well is just a good starting point as well. But
and you'll eat a lot less when you eat the right foods. Whereas if you're eating pizzas and bread and lots of crap, you'll just be constantly hungry. You're just constantly hungry. And,
you're feeding this constantly sugary, salty crap craving that they put into it on purpose to basically invite you back for more.
Exactly. There's an app actually that I use here, and I'm not sure is it available in Europe, but I mean, it's something that that's something that the charity could create if it wasn't available. The app that I use is, you scan the barcode when you go shopping, and it tells you all the toxic ingredients in it. And so that's got us far. And lots of times, especially what galls me is when you see stuff that's geared for the children, like the tomato sauce, and they have the little bunnies on it and all this, and they tend to be the worst ones. Marketing again, but like, so even if you do something like that, and maybe you don't want to do every single piece of product that you put into, but you will remember it. So for example, if you're looking at the ketchup and you go, whoa, this one is bad, like I do with my child, like I go down and go, look at this, and he doesn't want it because he realizes it, so make it a family thing.
Exactly.
And small change, small change, they all add, exactly, because then he has a habit. So because a lot of the time, it's not people don't want, like people get the chewing gum, they get the different things. They don't think they're eating bad things. They're just assuming that the government has your best interest in heart, like they're telling us for our health and safety at the moment. If our health and safety was of utmost importance, how come that they haven't given us the cure that we know that it is out there? How come they're allowing all these toxic ingredients?
Of course,
the people need to, like, that's why it's the awakening. Stop thinking that they've got your backs. They don't. They're actually pushing your back.
No, exactly. I couldn't agree more with you. And the more people that do hopefully tune into you as well will actually realize, Roy has a lot of value added points actually to say here on this. But is there anything else you'd like to say yourself on any topic yourself got to do with the book that you really wanted to, was a real point that you wanted to get out yourself?
Not really. I mean, like, I just look at, say, like the homelessness, because I saw it in Ireland maybe in 2012, 2014, that especially around government buildings, that I've never seen anything like it in my life. And then I was tracking it and watching it, and you see it around the country. And if you look at it, so like loads of people, there's a lot of charities that are set up to try and help the homelessness.
Yeah.
And who's making them homeless?
Of course.
And it's costing the taxpayer. Like, I saw one case there, was it 144 for having a family in a hotel, that they had kicked them out of their house. Like, the people are looking after their house. The banks basically, like, people lost their jobs because of the economy crashing because of the banks. And then the banks came along and said, oh, we'll take all your property. Oh, by the way, you owe us the difference. And then you had the vulture funds. They were selling them at 10%. And people became, so now you have lots of homeless people. And like, my way of the homelessness, and I looked at lots of things around that, is everybody, give everyone a home. You don't have to give them a mansion. Give them dignity. Because if you have dignity, you don't have, like, look at the cost when you have the police coming to arrest them. You've bringing them to the hospital. You're going to the jails, and just give them dignity, and let them get a foot up. Don't be taking the house off them. Give them interest only for 5 years, or just put a stall on their payments. It's going to cost people a lot less. The government, like I don't say because they think they're saving money, but let's say the taxpayer a lot less by doing it that way.
Yeah, it's the same. I think it's something like up to nearly 11,000 in the Republic at the moment is homeless on the streets. But yet we seem to be inviting more into direct provision centres week after week all around the country in Ireland, and it's crazy. I mean, look, we're all about helping people in different countries and all that, but first thing first, get your own house in order first and look after that first, and then do as much as you can to help everybody else outside of that. But it's a crazy industry
And
they're
like
going into.
people, they don't want to be coming here. Like there's people going in bombing their countries. That's all orchestrated,
Mm,
and then they've created hate among people. Like the reality is, if nobody went in and invaded their countries and put in a dictator there, that would never happen.
mm,
And you don't have people, just hating each other. It's not, and the direct provision. Like I know Blind Boy is doing a lot. I don't know. Do you listen to his podcast? But
yeah,
he's doing
yeah,
a lot of, like there's a lot of fraud going on in that. Like a
massively.
lot of people are there 10 years. They get, like, yeah, they have hotels, they have food, but it's like a prison. And there's children brought up in that. So they don't have a kitchen. They eat at certain times. Imagine being brought up in a
It
hotel
is,
room
of
for your
course.
life. And like if you're bringing somebody in, decide what's going to happen, not to let them in limbo. And it's the same with people now that are being made homeless, and then they're put in direct provision as well in Ireland, and they're in limbo, and it's not
It,
working.
it's madness. Or it's well, our government is basically just inviting them in willy nilly, constantly, all the time. When there are no jobs for them to come over to. So at the end of the day, it comes back to the taxpayer, the person who's working on the ground, is supporting constantly all this, and it's going on under their nose half the time. The government don't let people know or don't advise them in the system, just basically throw them in. And what they're doing is they're basically bringing into a lot of the country areas. They tried bringing them into a lot of places in the cities, the big cities. Now they're basically bringing them out into the countryside. I think it was a while back, actually, they went into Lisdoonvarna there. And Lisdoonvarna been famous for its festival of music and dating and so on like that over the years. But it's I think the population is only something like a couple of hundred people, and then they ended up bringing a few hundred people into the actual area within a few miles of all that region. I mean, there's nothing there for them. There's no actual transport. There's no services for them. There's no jobs for them. There's no schools for them to accommodate everybody that's there. And they just keep to bring up the figures and figures all the time. It's madness. Like, who's paying for it at the end of the day? It's currently in the government's interest. It's not in the Irish person's interest to have all this going on here. I mean, it's misfortune what has happened to these people, but we can't basically just welcome in the world into our country either at the same time, because it destroys the culture of the nation, the people that's constantly there on the ground themselves that are trying to make a better living for themselves. And it destroys rural communities as well. Just having that, if you get people from different parts of the world that have completely grew up in a completely different culture to what we did, and all of a sudden you've just invited them over, dropped them in somewhere like Lisdoonvarna, which is a tiny, anybody doesn't know it that's not living in Ireland or known it, it's a tiny little village area in Ireland, and there's next to nothing there pretty much, and dropping these people in there that have completely different way of life, a completely different culture, and no true fault of their own. That's the way they were brought up, and you're just dropped there, and it's like, there you go, guys. There's a room and a and a roof over your head, and pretty much fend for yourself. And we'll accommodate you with money, sort of just to get you by week to week. But I mean, your own mentality and your mental well-being for those people. I mean, how can you work and how can you get on with that kind of thing? Because there's nothing in that surrounding area for you to do. And if
A
you've
lot of the
nothing to
time they
do,
won't allow them to work. A lot of the time they're saying they won't allow them, because I know people that they've gone
yeah,
through
when
that.
they come in
They've
first,
given them,
yeah,
I think it's something like €19, and there's people that are 10 years and they're not allowed work. They want to work and they
mm,
won't allow them. And it's kind of like a high-end prison. That's the way I see it.
mm. No,
It's not fair on them. Like,
no, nobody's
they're
really
caught.
benefiting from it.
Yeah, no, no.
No, it's not a good situation. But well, Roy, I have to say it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and we'll hope to do it again sometime. And is there
Thanks for
anything you'd
having me
like to
in.
say to the listeners, and where they can actually find you as well?
They'll find me on roycoughlan.com. The podcast is awakeningpodcast.org. And if you want change in the world, be the change you want to see.
Brilliant, I love it. And look out for Roy's book, hopefully coming in the next couple of weeks. Cheers.
Thanks, Chris.